Welcome to the Parenting for Faith podcast. This week's episode is a rerun episode with Esther Kuku talking about stepfamilies. Apologies for the quality of the video and potentially some of the audio. This was taken a few months ago, but please enjoy the content. It is fantastic.
I'm delighted to be joined on the podcast today by Esther Kuku. She's a biomum and a stepmom who's been married for 12 years and is absolutely passionate about stepfamilies and about compassionate leadership. Esther, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and your family?
So we are a family of 6, and I have 2 biological children who are 8 and 10, and then I have my stepchildren who are teenagers now. They are 19 and 16.
It's definitely the parent of multiple children when you really have to think about how old they are. Excellent. So you got rocketed, you got a bit of a promotion in parenting when you became a step parent. You sort of whizzed forward to some later years that you hadn't yet got to with your biological children. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's fascinating really, because I was a step parent before I was a biological parent. So it's been a really interesting journey, but also a beautiful journey.
And we were chatting before. I was saying, help me understand what step parenting's like and what you'd like people to understand it. And you had a really good analogy about it as a sort of meal. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I said that with step parenting, it's more of a Sunday roast than a microwave meal. And by that, what I mean is we all love a Sunday roast and we all love a Christmas dinner, and we know how much effort and time we have to take into preparing that Sunday roast meal. And, we all at Christmas, it's all about the goose fat, right? And all of those things for those perfect potatoes. And we love that kind of meal that takes time, but it does take effort and it does take energy and it does take time. And in the end, it's a very beautiful thing. We would much rather that than a microwave meal that we would have midweek that takes us like 20 minutes to do in the microwave. And it encapsulates step parenting. And what I say to everybody really is that the term blended family, I do not like that term. It's a bit of a misnomer, because no step family is blended when it first starts. Like quite the opposite. It's like oil and water trying to merge children from different backgrounds together. And it's a process and it's a journey that takes that time, that investment, that marination, if you like, to keep with the analogy, to work.
Yeah, I think that's so helpful and such a beautiful way of describing it as well. Something that is really to be cherished and that we enjoy, but does take effort and energy. And our culture is all about the quick fix and the easy wins, isn't it? And the hacks. And actually, it's really lovely to hear someone talking about it being worth the time and effort and energy and patience to create something really beautiful and to work hard at something. So you're writing Stepping Up, which is a devotional for step families that will be coming out in June 2026. I'd love to hear what inspired you to write that and to share about life as a Christian step parent.
Anna, it took me forever to get married. Like I was single, like forever. And I think it's really helpful to people listening. So I got married when I was 40. And I'm now 41, and like I suddenly had everything, like in terms of family. I had my 2 stepchildren who were very young at the time. I'm going to get all of the ages wrong, I know this, but I think one was 6 and one was 8 at the time. But then I was immediately pregnant with my first bio child, like within a year of being married, within 6 months of being married. And it all became really overwhelming. I moved into the house that my husband had lived in with his former spouse. My stepchildren had lived in that house prior to me coming. I was the stranger, like I was the foreign person on the block coming into a house that everybody had lived in. And it was right down to really simple things. Like I would put the the knives and forks in a drawer. And my stepdaughter would say, no, they don't go there, they go here. And I'll be like, well, actually, I want them to go there now. And then you kind of think to yourself, what is more important, the forks in the drawer or building a relationship with this little girl? And there was just nobody to help me. There wasn't a guide. And I'd had marriage counselling, actually, which was great. The marital counselling I had was great, but it did not fit our family and our home. So I really wanted to create a resource that could just help families that look like mine to understand, really crucially, that it will not be easy. And I think that's really important. And I don't think that's a negative thing to say, because when we look at life, big picture, anything worth having takes effort and time, right? And with a blended family or a step family, it's like, it won't be easy at the beginning, but if you just focus and with prayer and with time and with patience and with humility, you can have something that is incredibly powerful and a real representation of God's redemptive power to heal and restore.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you now to read an extract from your book.
Okay. Faith rarely understands where it's being led, but it trusts the one who is leading. On my wedding day, I remember walking around the tables, thanking the guests for coming. I approached one table and a guest warmly said, "Congratulations, I hope it works." I smiled and said, "Thank you," as you do. I remember the face and the comment like it was yesterday. We are 12 years on, our marriage has worked. No one dreams of being a step parent, and that is where the adventure begins. Through redesigned dreams, a new plan unfolds. It's been a roller coaster ride, and my husband and I are more in love than ever before. The joy of the Lord has been our strength. It has not always been easy, and I'm certain that there are challenges ahead, but we have learned to take up his yoke and learn from him. People in step families often feel that they're alone. You are not. It's 13 years since I started my step-parent journey, and I did feel very alone for the first few years. I got married when I was 40 and immediately became a bonus mum to two beautiful people who were 6 and 8. Today, they are young adults who are thriving in life and finding their way, and we all love each other very much.
Thank you. That's beautiful and such a helpful introduction. But I was cringing a little bit there. You can probably guess the bit that I was cringing at. How do you navigate and help children to navigate comments like, "I hope it works"? You know, anything with that sort of sentiment. Maybe they've been hurt in the past, or they've just got a sense of uncertainty or skepticism from other people that's, you know, overhanging, is kind of being brought into this new family and this new relationship. That must be really difficult to handle.
Yeah, so I think that the important thing is for children is to meet them where they are and not where you want them to be, right? And they are naturally very inquisitive, and they will naturally ask questions, and they naturally have no filter. And I was laughing with my stepson recently because we were having a conversation about back in the day. And I remember one of the first meals we had before I married his father, and he was in my living room, in my old home. And he turned round to me and he said, "Oh, that's the worst meal I've ever eaten." He was about 6. And it's, you know, it just goes to show you where children are. And I think they will generally give you the pace that they want to go at. And if you are attentive and you are leaning in to them, they come first. Children, like, you know, there is no vagueness here. The children in a step family setting have to come first, and they become the priority. And in the book, which I'm still writing, there's a bit in it that says, you know, unfortunately, romance will have to take a back seat in the early stages, you know, but they come first, and you just lean into their questions and you answer their questions very honestly. But I say to you, Anna, one thing that children really love is stability and routine. And if they can see the two important adults in their lives, or all the important adults in their lives, stable, mature, and loving one another, then that is going to make them feel safe. And ultimately, children want to feel safe. And as long as they're feeling safe, in time, they will get used to their new surroundings and they will settle.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I think you're right that it can get lost in the trying to manage all the different bits of it. We often say at Parenting for Faith that parents and carers are the experts in their own children.
Yeah.
And I would imagine part of the challenge as a step parent is you're becoming the expert in that child, but you're not starting from day one when they're a tiny little baby and making all your mistakes when they can't answer back and tell you they don't like the dinner and all that sort of stuff. But they've already got some ways of doing things that they're used to. And so you're learning that the way you've described that there, you're learning them, you're understanding them, you're becoming the expert in them and what they like and don't like and what helps them and all those sort of things. But you've just got to approach it slightly differently because of the stage they're coming at. I guess there's some parallels with adoption there as well. If you adopt an older child, that there are some things that are already in place and it's still absolutely possible. You've just got to be tuned into that child. Yeah, that's really helpful. And you've sort of explained there that you're a bio mum and a step mum, so you've got both children. Do you feel like there are any differences in the way that you spiritually parent in those roles, or is it very similar?
So what I say all the time is, like, with step parenting, there will be times when you are the stagehand, there will be times when you are the supporting act, and there will be times when you're the main character. And you have to be discerning and to be able to flip between those roles. And there's a huge amount of humility that underpins that. Whereas clearly with biological children, you have that DNA, that is already there. You have free reign to discipline as you see fit, to call out as you see fit. Whereas with being a step parent, particularly in the early stages, it is wisdom to allow the bio parent to lead with things like discipline. That should change over time. And particularly there's slight differences, I think. And I think for me, my husband was very good in that. And he was pretty much saying, do what you want from day one. Actually, he was really good. But then I could see that actually, like I said earlier, you meet children where they are, not where you want them to be. And they feel safer with their biological parent and being guided by their biological parent in the initial stages. So there is that bit that with your own children, you can call the shots and kind of lead and discipline and raise as you see fit. And with your stepchildren, it is the wisdom and the humility to take a step back and be guided by the biological parent, but then also have really honest conversations with the biological parent as to when and how that journey of joint and shared discipline takes place, because it's really important. It's particularly important in an environment where you have a man that's a stepfather and has come in, because I always say, like, men that raise another man's children, I mean, it's just a different level, where they're stepping in, where another man has made different choices and chosen not to be there for their children. The woman needs to then be very sensitive and allow him to play that role and to play that father figure role, and not have him just on the sidelines, just doing everything and paying the bills, but nothing else, because then that's going to cause some tension.
And I was thinking back to what you'd said a bit earlier too about all the key adults in their life being stable and loving each other. And I remember a good friend of mine, her teenage stepdaughter coming, and there'd been an issue about phone and boyfriend and whatever. It doesn't matter what had gone on. But I saw her, listening really well to her stepdaughter. And at the end of the conversation, she said, okay, right, well, you know what needs to happen now. And, you know, the stepdaughter nodded and went off. And I said, oh, what does need to happen now? You know, I'd be watching this. And she was like, well, I know how I would handle that, but I need to have a conversation with her dad, her mum, and her stepdad, because we don't make any decisions without all four of us being on the same page, so that it's consistent in both houses and so that we're doing it in the same way. And I was like, wow, that is next level. Like, I was just
There's so
impressed.
Many pieces and parts that you need to navigate.
Yeah, but just that kind of honoring of, you know, like you were saying, the child being at the center and thinking about their experience and making sure there's kind of that joined up thinking between any adults who are significant in their life. I just thought was so powerful, really, really helpful. You've given us so many nuggets of wisdom already, but I wanted to ask kind of what your advice would be to someone who's becoming a step parent, or maybe going through a challenging time in their step parenting. You've talked a bit about how in those early years it was quite lonely. Talk to people who are either stepping up or going through a challenging time at the moment.
So I'm going to, I like to be spiritual, but I also like to be really practical. And let me first of all just lay it all out on the table and be practical and say that, you know, if you're in a step parenting, because there are lots of different scenarios, but let's take the scenario of you have stepchildren that come and every other weekend they're there and some weekends they're not. I remember really early on when it was quite difficult, I'd be like, do you know what? It's 48 hours. Like it's 48 hours and they're going to go home and then that's that. And I think sometimes you have to be honest and be kind to yourself and say, I'm really new to this. I've never had children. For the person that is a bit like me, never had children to start with, just take it in small pieces and say, look, let the bio parent lead. Certainly don't force something that none of the bio parents want to buy into. I remember, and I do mention this, I remember when I wanted to have a WhatsApp group for myself, my husband, and his former partner. I could see that my husband was a bit like, not sure about that. But he just said, yeah, okay. So for me, so he set up this WhatsApp group. And it was really for me so that I could understand all of the different logistics and the clubs at the weekend and things like that, because it was really new to me and I was dropping balls left, right and center. I was also pregnant. And I remember that group being set up and I remember his former partner, you know, when it says so-and-so has left the group. So it was like, so that basically happened. And I realized there's no point in me forcing that. So it's just to say, don't force something that the biological parents that are not, is not going to work for them, because that's never going to work. And protect your peace. Protect your peace. You know, the Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flows the issues of life. I think there's another scripture that says, perfect peace have they whose mind is stayed on the Lord. And I think that protect your peace with everything. Just do not give it away. It's too important. And then the other thing I would say is humility is really important too. And humility, there's a big thing there, because we have a tendency to say, let me tell you what is wrong with you, Anna. Let me tell you about yourself in this situation, right? But really, if we just sometimes took ownership, what can I own in this situation? In this conversation, what can I own? And in terms of the outcome, what do I want the outcome to be? What would success look like in terms of this difficult conversation? Do we have to have it now? Do I have to be right? Or is there a bigger picture here? On the other side of this conversation that I'm having with this person, how do I want to feel? And when we kind of put those emotional bookends in place, it will just help us to take a step back and have more powerful, more healing, redemptive types of questions. And there's one more thing. I think sometimes in step parent families, emotions can be run really high. really high. And that example that you gave with your friend, I thought was great, because it's all sounded very clean and wonderful and lovely, but the reality is that it cannot be, and sometimes step families can be like an onion, like there's so many layers, and each layer just makes you cry. It really does. But there is something about when people are maybe not being nice and saying the hurtful words, or using hurtful words or hurtful behavior. Sometimes that behavior is actually not it's coming from a place of pain. So we can see the hurting heart behind some of the behavior. It will help us to more effectively take a step back and be kind and be compassionate.
There's so much wisdom in there, not just for step parents. I was like, must remember that. So many helpful things for just navigating potentially difficult situations. And you're all over the food metaphors. Like, love the onion as well. I know. You need a cookery book next, I think. And we've talked a bit there about some of the challenging things. What's the best thing about being a step parent? What do you like about it?
I love it because it's just like new beginnings, fresh start, hope, redemption, healing. It's God showing that he did it before and he can do it again, and that he's a forgiving father, and that he's just going to show himself strong on behalf of his children. He's going to demonstrate his compassion. He's going to show you how he restores and heals and sets free, and just put all of that kind of mercy and grace that is very key to his character and nature on display.
Absolutely love that. I think we're going to leave it on that note, because that's such a nice way to end and such an encouragement. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed the content, please do share, tag us, leave a review, leave us a comment. And if you are interested in continuing to support us and our work at Parenting for Faith, please do consider giving, and head to our show notes for more information, as well as the link to Esther's new book. See you again next week.